She tucked the kids into bed, sent a quick text to her mom, and stepped into the kitchen to grab a glass of water. It was just after midnight. By dawn, Lila was gone. No signs of forced entry. No sounds of a struggle. Just vanished. For 3 years, the town whispered, speculated, and feared the worst. But when a single piece of evidence surfaced in a remote forest, the case unraveled into something no one could have imagined. Before we dive deeper into this chilling story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell because every day, we uncover the darkest corners of true crime, and you won't want to miss a single case. Now, let's unravel the mystery behind the midnight disappearance that left an entire town terrified. June 3, 2019. It was a warm summer night in Ash Grove, Oregon, a sleepy town tucked between dense forests and winding backroads. Lila Hart, a 17-year-old high school senior, had taken a babysitting job for the Bakers, a well-off couple living on the edge of town. She had babysat for them before. It was supposed to be routine. 2 kids, ages 5 and 7. A pizza dinner. A Disney movie. Bedtime by 9. At 11:52 p.m., Lila texted her mom. "Kids are asleep. House is quiet. I'll be home soon. Love you." It was the last message anyone ever received from her. The Bakers arrived home at 1:12 a.m. The front door was locked. The lights inside the house were off except for the dim kitchen bulb. The children were sound asleep, untouched. But Lila? Gone. Her purse was on the couch. Her phone was plugged in and charging. Her shoes by the back door. A half-full glass of water on the counter. It was as if she had evaporated. At first, the Bakers thought she might have stepped out, maybe to take a call or meet someone briefly. But her phone was still inside. There was no car waiting outside. No signs of movement, no neighbors who had seen or heard anything. They tried calling her parents, who thought she had already left for home. By 2:15 a.m., the Bakers contacted the police. By sunrise, a search had begun. Ash Grove's police department mobilized quickly. Officers combed the nearby woods. Dogs tracked her scent to the edge of a trail that ran behind the Baker house, and then nothing. It stopped cold, near an old wooden bridge that hadn't been used in years. Volunteers joined the search. Flyers were printed. The media picked up the story. Local teen vanishes from babysitting job. Everyone wanted answers. But there were none. No fingerprints. No security footage. No signs of foul play. It was like chasing a ghost. The town buzzed with theories. Some said she ran away. Others suspected the Bakers. Rumors swirled about secret boyfriends, online predators, and a strange man spotted near the woods days earlier. But none of it added up. Lila wasn't the type to run. She was weeks away from graduating with honors. She had dreams of becoming a pediatric nurse. She adored children. Her future was bright. She had plans. And yet, she was gone. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation hit a wall. But just when it seemed the trail had gone cold, an anonymous letter arrived at the police station, one that would shift the entire case into a chilling new direction. It had been 5 agonizing weeks since Lila Hart vanished from the Baker residence. The flyers had faded. Search parties dwindled. The media coverage moved on. Ash Grove returned to a shaky version of normal, but Lila's family never stopped hoping. Never stopped searching. Then, on July 17, 2019, hope took a strange turn. An envelope arrived at the Ash Grove Police Department. No return address. No postmark. Just a white envelope, slightly damp from rain, slid under the back door sometime during the night. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper. Scrawled in blocky, uneven handwriting. "You're looking in the wrong place. She's not lost. She's been taken. He lives where the river splits. She saw something she shouldn't have." There was no signature. No fingerprints. No DNA. No identifiable writing style. Just those 28 words are enough to reignite the fire. The note sent a ripple through the investigation. Where the river splits, that phrase stuck. Investigators pulled out topographical maps of the region. There were 2 places near Ash Grove where the river branched. One deep in the eastern woods, the other near a cluster of abandoned cabins once used by logging workers decades earlier. The FBI, already loosely involved, stepped in with profiling experts. Was the letter a taunt? A genuine clue? Or the ramblings of someone trying to interfere? Police couldn't afford to dismiss it. On July 19, a team of officers and cadaver dogs swept the area east of Ash Grove. The woods were thick, unkempt, and riddled with old trails long erased from modern maps. Days passed with no results, until they reached a moss-covered structure. It was a stone well, nearly hidden by ferns and fallen branches. The dogs reacted. The team held their breath. But what they found inside wasn't a body. It was a tattered backpack. Inside, a notebook with faded, water-damaged writing, a tube of strawberry lip gloss, and a name tag that read, Lila. To Lila's parents, it was both a gift and a curse. Proof she had been out there. That maybe she still was. But also proof that someone had moved her, kept her things, perhaps watched the investigation from afar. The note, the backpack, the remote location. It all pointed to premeditation. Intent. She didn't wander off. She didn't run away. She had been taken. And the person who took her knew how to hide. With the backpack discovered and suspicion thick in the air, investigators turned their attention to the past, to a man who once lived in the woods near that very river split. A man whose history no one in town wanted to talk about. But Lila's disappearance had blown the lid off the silence. Ashgrove had always been a town where stories passed quietly between neighbors. Unspoken warnings, half-truths. But in every whisper, one name lingered like smoke. Jonas Mercer. He was once a forest ranger, until he wasn't. In 2006, Jonas had abruptly resigned from his post with no explanation. Not long after, his cabin deep in the Ashgrove woods was found abandoned, though sightings of him continued. Some said he'd gone off-grid. Others said he was hiding from something far worse than the law. Now, with Lila's backpack turning up near the very trails Jonas once patrolled, investigators had to ask, was this coincidence, or something darker? July 22, 2019. A special search team revisited the forest with a new purpose. The hike took hours. The deeper they went, the less nature felt natural. Overgrown vines twisted unnaturally, claw marks etched tree trunks, and symbols were carved into rocks that looked far too recent. Then, the cabin. It was barely standing, leaning under the weight of time and rot. The front door hung off its hinges. But what was inside? That chilled everyone. No electricity. No running water. Just shelves of old cassette tapes, all labeled with dates. The most recent? June 28, 2016. The day Lila vanished. They brought the tapes back to headquarters. No one knew what to expect. Maybe nothing. Maybe too much. The recordings were grainy. Mostly ambient sounds of the woods. Owls. Insects. But then, at timestamp 1 hour 4 minutes and 32 seconds on the June 28 tape, a faint sound. A scream. It wasn't prolonged, just one burst. Distant, terrified, unmistakably young. Investigators looped the audio, dissected the acoustics. Experts said it came from a canyon about 2.6 miles west of the cabin, near a ravine where search dogs had once shown minor interest but found nothing. Now it was the focal point. A week later, under heavy security, law enforcement returned. They rappelled into the ravine's steep drop, a natural cut in the earth shielded by years of fallen trees and debris. About 18 feet down, partially buried under stones, they found bones. But not Lila's. The remains belonged to two males, both estimated to be in their 40s. Their bodies showed signs of trauma, blunt force defensive wounds. No IDs, no missing persons match. But nearby, wrapped in plastic, was something that didn't belong. A pink beaded bracelet, small enough for a child. Lila's favorite color was pink. The discovery opened more questions than answers. Who were the two men? What was Lila's bracelet doing there? And where was Jonas Mercer? As the town reeled, another revelation was just around the corner, one hidden in plain sight, back at the Baker residence. 4 months after Lila's disappearance, the Bakers kept her room exactly the same. Dust gathered, but nothing was moved, not a photo, not a sock. It became a shrine to the girl they once knew. But in the wake of the recent discoveries, the bracelet in the ravine, the tapes in the cabin, investigators requested to re-examine the Baker home. Not the woods this time, not the school, not her social circle. Just the house. They believed Lila had left clues, not in words but in silence. In the places she thought no one would ever look. Lila's room was pastel, pinks, lilacs, paper stars stuck to the ceiling. To the untrained eye, everything seemed untouched. But a forensic team brought tools for more than fingerprints. They scanned for temperature differences, structural disturbances, and then, under her bed, something pinged. A single floorboard just slightly looser than the rest. They pried it open. Inside was a small metal box, rusted around the edges, locked with a simple latch. Inside, a notebook. Not a diary. More like a list. The first few pages looked innocent. Drawings, quotes, song lyrics. But the further they flipped, the darker it got. Lila had been documenting things she noticed. Strange phone calls late at night. A black SUV parked near the house. Scratches on her window pane. Her parents' whispers behind closed doors. And one name kept reappearing, Jonas. Not just in fear, but with familiarity. One entry read, "He came again. Didn't say anything. Just stood at the tree line. I think Dad saw him too. He didn't do anything, just stared. But I'm not scared anymore. I think he's trying to help me." Investigators were stunned. Had Jonas been watching her? Protecting her? Or something else entirely? Tucked at the back of the notebook was a single Polaroid. Blurry. Taken from inside the house. A shot through the bedroom window into the woods. In the photo, a man. Tall. Ragged. Standing still. Face partially shadowed. And beside him, what looked like another child. Blonde. Petite. Wearing what could only be described as a uniform. The same babysitting shirt Lila wore the night she vanished. The image was time-stamped, June 26, 2016, 2 days before she disappeared. The evidence was stacking, but it wasn't forming answers. If Jonas had Lila, why hadn't he been found? And who was the other figure in the photo? As the town braced for more revelations, something else emerged, something buried in the forest that had been missed for years. It started with a misstep. A volunteer searcher, part of a renewed cold case unit, was trekking through the forest path behind the Baker home. The same route Lila would have walked every day. The path curved sharply around a slope, and then the ground gave way. He tumbled 6 feet into what looked like an old trench. Except it wasn't natural. Beneath the moss and leaves lay weathered wooden beams, lined like a primitive wall. Investigators called in archaeologists and structural engineers. The verdict? An abandoned root cellar. One that didn't appear on any town records. Inside it was dark, damp, and cold. But what they found down there sent shivers through even the most seasoned officers. In the corner was a makeshift bed, rags, torn blankets, a rusted camping mattress. On the wall, tally marks. Hundreds of them. At the center, an iron hook chained into the stone foundation. There were remnants of meals, children's books, even drawings on the wall, all in crayon, all in one familiar hand. Lila's. She'd been there. Alive. For days, maybe weeks. But there were 2 sets of handwriting. Some words scratched in uneven block letters. Messages. Almost like a conversation. Stay still. He's coming. Don't talk back. You said I could leave. One phrase was carved over and over again into the wall near the bed. He watches from the trees. At first, it seemed like a hallucination. Lila's trauma, manifested in drawings and desperate messages. But then the team discovered another clue. Buried beneath a slab of broken wood near the cellar's entrance was a lock of hair, dark brown, tangled in a ribbon. DNA analysis didn't match Lila. It belonged to another girl. A girl that had never been reported missing. Facial reconstruction artists worked with Lila's sketches. The profile was haunting, large eyes, small mouth, pigtails. The same girl from the Polaroid. The one standing next to Jonas in the woods. Who was she? The town began whispering the name, the Forest Girl. An unofficial moniker for a child no one claimed, yet one whose presence was undeniably linked to Lila's disappearance. The FBI reran cold case databases. Nothing. No reports matched her DNA. But one agent noticed a detail others missed. The ribbon in her hair matched those used at Camp Hollow Pine, a now-defunct summer retreat 40 miles north. The camp had been shut down after a fire in 2010, caused by arson. Lila had never gone there. But Jonas had worked maintenance there for 2 summers. The agent's theory? Jonas hadn't just found Lila. He was recreating something. Or someone. And Lila had figured it out. Just when the case seemed to reach its most horrifying point, something unexpected arrived at the sheriff's office. An unmarked envelope. No return address. Inside, an old USB drive. They scanned it immediately. What played was a single grainy video clip, just under 2 minutes. The footage showed a candlelit room. The angle was tilted. A young girl sat on the floor, her face dirty, her eyes wide. It was Lila. She looked older than in the photos. Weary. Her voice trembled. If anyone finds this, please tell my mom I tried to come home. I really did. I wanted to be brave. But he... Suddenly she stopped. Her eyes shifted left. The candle flickered. A man's shadow fell across the floor. Then the video cut. 3 years. A hidden cellar. A faceless girl. And now, a recorded cry for help from beyond the silence. But the biggest question remained, where was Lila now? And what exactly had Jonas done in those final hours? The USB footage sent shockwaves through the investigation. There was no timestamp, no metadata. Just 2 agonizing minutes that hinted Lila had survived much longer than anyone thought. But when a forensic audio analyst enhanced the video's background sounds, faintly beneath the static, there was a recognizable hum, an old refrigerator model, and the chirp of a smoke detector with a dying battery. It was still beeping. That meant the footage couldn't be more than a few weeks old. Lila might still be alive. Authorities moved fast. They mapped power grids near abandoned cabins, hunting for anywhere using the same rare refrigerator unit. 4 possible matches. 3 turned out to be empty. The 4th? A storm shelter, buried behind a long-abandoned cabin once owned by Jonas's late uncle. It was padlocked shut. Fresh tire tracks in the mud led up to the door, and vanished. Agents moved in. The lock was new. Inside, the air was thick with mildew. Dust clung to every surface. And then they saw it, a trap door under a rug sealed shut with rusted nails. When they broke it open, they expected the worst. But what they found chilled them in an entirely different way. A mannequin lay on a cot, clothed in Lila's original babysitting uniform. A wig. A face drawn crudely on cloth. Surrounding it, old photographs labeled with dates, names scratched out except one, Lila. Pinned above the cot was a note. She left. But I kept her here. No sign of Lila's body. No sign she had ever been there recently. The entire shelter was staged. An obsession turned into a shrine. Jonas had died, but his delusions were still alive, like an echo trapped in a tomb. The hope that Lila might still be alive faded. But then another clue surfaced, not from law enforcement but from nature itself. 2 hikers walking along the far side of Ravens Creek, nearly 4 miles from the Baker home, stumbled across something odd. Bones. Not scattered. Arranged. Deliberately. In a circle. At the center of the circle, a small, weathered locket. When they opened it, inside was a photograph. A girl with big eyes, brown curls, and a wide smile. It was Lila. Dental records confirmed the grim truth days later. The remains were hers. The creek had run too high in previous searches. It had kept her hidden all this time. But it wasn't just her skeleton they found. Buried beneath hers was another, smaller, with similar features. It was the forest girl. And beside them, carved into a rock with a knife. She wouldn't let me leave without her. 2 girls. 1 predator. A town haunted by its secrets. But what truly happened in those final hours? And why did Lila never escape even when she had the chance? Days after Lila's remains were identified, her mother received a package in the mail. No return address. No postage. Inside, a small leather-bound diary, cracked with age and stained with what looked like ash or mold. At first glance, it appeared blank. But under UV light, faint handwriting emerged, page after page of Lila's voice. The first few entries were from the night she disappeared. He's watching me. But he doesn't talk. I think he wants me to think I'm alone here. The entries became more erratic over time. Dates stopped making sense. Thoughts looped back on themselves. But then something shifted. In one of the last entries, Lila described a secret. A passage she discovered in the shelter. A crawlspace lined with old stone and dripping water. She tried to escape. I crawled for what felt like miles. There was a girl there. Her skin was pale, her eyes hollow. But she wasn't afraid. She said, "He's part of this place. If you leave, he follows." The final page was stained dark. It simply read, "I'm not sure which of us is still alive anymore. If you find this, don't come looking." Narrator. Investigators returned to the storm shelter with cadaver dogs, this time searching for the crawlspace Lila mentioned. They found it. A narrow tunnel sealed behind a false wall. The air was stale and heavy. It led to a root cellar, one never listed on property records. There were 2 sets of footprints. One large, one small. And in the far corner, a message etched into the wall with what looked like a nail. "My name is Lila. I was here. I was not alone." It was the last confirmed thing she ever wrote. Her funeral drew hundreds. Even those who never knew her showed up in silent mourning. People left teddy bears, music notes, and pages from their own journals, honoring the girl who tried to stay human in a place built to erase her. But even in death, Lila left behind a ripple effect. Her diary inspired a nationwide change in missing person searches, including psychological profiling of suspects with a history of obsession, even without prior convictions. Yet some still believe not all parts of the story were revealed. Because not long after Lila's case was closed, Another girl went missing. Same town. Same age. She disappeared at midnight. Sometimes evil doesn't die. It hides. It waits. And when the town sleeps, it wakes again. Subscribe to Crime Cortex AI. For the stories that never rest. For the truths that were buried. And for the victims who refuse to be forgotten.